I remember the day like it was yesterday. The sun hung low over our house, casting a soft golden light across the front yard. I had just finished my morning coffee, the cup still warm in my hands, the scent of freshly baked bread from the kitchen filling the air. My life, until that moment, had been quiet, ordinary even. But all of that was about to change. My husband, Tom, had been my rock for so many years. We'd weathered storms, both literal and metaphorical, together. We built this life, this home, and it was supposed to last forever. Or at least, that's what I thought. But that morning, my world started to crumble. It was the phone call that changed everything. The one that came at 7 a.m., the one that would never leave my mind, the one that told me Tom had passed away in his sleep. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. In the days that followed, everything felt like a haze. There were people coming and going, condolence cards piled up on the kitchen table, and the sound of silence was deafening. I couldn't bring myself to leave the house. What was the point? The world outside continued, but inside, it felt as though time had stopped. But what hurt more than anything was the way my family treated me. My daughter, Lily, a girl who had always been so close to me, started pulling away. At first, it was subtle. She wouldn't return my calls. She avoided eye contact. And when we did talk, it felt like she was keeping a secret. I couldn't put my finger on it. Something wasn't right. But I was too consumed with grief to dig deeper. Until one day, after a quiet dinner, she leaned in and whispered to me, "Mom, maybe you should see someone. I don't know if you're handling this well." Those words stung, not just because of the grief, but because they came from Lily, someone who had always been my rock. Her words felt like an accusation, like she thought I was losing my mind. The very idea made me shudder. Was I? And then there was my son, Mark. A man of few words, but a steady presence. He'd always been the logical one, the one who tried to make sense of everything. But even he seemed distant. In a quiet moment, as I stood in the living room, he handed me a folder. "It's just a formality, Mom," he said. I looked at the folder, confused. "What is this?" "It's the will," he replied, his tone flat, emotionless. Before we go any further, I want to pause for a moment. Please write in the comments where you're watching this from. And don't forget to like and subscribe so this channel can keep growing and bring you even more fascinating stories. It was in that moment, staring at the folder in my hands, that the first seed of doubt was planted. Why was he so casual about it? Why had Tom's will become some cold, impersonal formality? Shouldn't this have been a moment for reflection, for mourning, for something more? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the ceiling, thinking about what Mark had said. I thought back to Lily's words, her suggestion that I wasn't handling this well. Something felt off. So much of what had been familiar was now fractured, like a broken mirror reflecting pieces of a life that no longer made sense. I couldn't shake the feeling that my children were hiding something from me. But what? And why? I decided, then and there, that I would find out. I wasn't going to be the woman who let her children decide her fate. Not now. Not after everything. Little did I know that decision would set me on a path that would change everything, everything about my family, my husband's death, and the future I thought I knew. The days after Tom's passing passed in a blur, but in the stillness, there was an undercurrent of tension that I couldn't ignore. My thoughts, clouded with grief, started to clear, and I became more observant. I'd find myself sitting in the living room, watching Mark and Lily, their conversations terse, their glances at each other too guarded. They were hiding something. I could feel it in my bones. One afternoon, as I sat in the kitchen, I overheard them talking in hushed tones in the hallway. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone. It was enough to send a shiver down my spine. The conversation ended abruptly when they saw me. It wasn't unusual for us to have quiet moments in the house, but this felt different, like they were trying to shield something from me. I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I needed answers. Later that night, after Mark had gone to bed and Lily had retreated to her room, I slipped into the study where Tom had spent most of his evenings. The scent of his cologne still lingered in the room, and for a moment, I felt a pang of grief so deep it nearly took my breath away, but I pushed it aside. I couldn't afford to lose myself in it. I moved to Tom's desk, opened the drawer, and found a stack of papers. The will, the one Mark had handed me, was sitting on top. I picked it up and glanced over it. It seemed so final, so official. The words blurred in front of my eyes, but one sentence caught my attention. If the primary beneficiary is unable or unwilling to fulfill their duties, the secondary beneficiary shall take precedence. I blinked, confused. What does this mean? I whispered aloud to myself. I wasn't a lawyer, but Tom had never spoken of any contingency like this. Unable or unwilling. Why would that be in there? I hadn't seen the will in years. Why was Mark so sure that everything was just a formality? My hands began to tremble as I dug deeper into the pile. And that's when I found it, another letter, an envelope with my name on it sealed. My heart skipped a beat. It was written in Tom's handwriting, but it felt wrong. Why hadn't I seen this before? Why was it hidden? I tore it open, my hands shaking. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. There are things about our family that you don't know, things I couldn't share with you. I'm sorry, but trust Mark. He will know what to do. Whatever happens, you mustn't fight it. The words echoed in my mind. Don't fight it? What did that mean? I couldn't even breathe. The letter didn't make sense. And the more I thought about it, the more I felt like I was losing my grip on everything. I quickly shoved the letter back into the envelope and placed it back where I'd found it. My stomach churned with confusion and a growing sense of dread. Something was wrong. Something big. I needed to talk to Mark. I needed answers, and I was no longer willing to let them slide. But even as I thought that, doubt gnawed at me. Was I overreacting? Was my grief clouding my judgment? I didn't know anymore. I decided to confront him the next morning. But when I walked into the living room, my heart sank. There was Mark, sitting with a lawyer, the very one Tom had always used for business matters. They were speaking in hushed tones, and when they saw me, they both looked uncomfortable. Mom, Mark said, standing up quickly. This isn't what it looks like. I felt a surge of anger flood my chest. Then what is it? I demanded. What are you hiding from me? The lawyer, a man I barely knew, stood up slowly, adjusting his glasses as if the whole thing were a casual inconvenience. We're just making sure everything is in order, Mrs. Bradford, for the estate. I know that, I snapped. But why does it feel like I'm the last to know anything? Why didn't Tom ever tell me about this? Mark's face tightened. It's complicated, he muttered. Things. Things aren't always what they seem, Mom. I felt my pulse quicken. He was lying. The walls I had carefully built around my sanity started to crumble. The rage in my chest was overwhelming. Complicated. I'd heard that word too many times in the last few days, but I couldn't make sense of any of it. What was so complicated about grieving the death of the man I loved? What was so complicated about finding the truth? I stared at Mark, the man I had raised, and saw only the cold, distant figure of someone I didn't recognize. He wasn't the same person anymore. He wasn't the son I knew. Mark, I said, my voice shaking with a mix of grief and fear. I need you to be honest with me. What is going on? The lawyer shifted nervously, glancing at Mark before he spoke. Perhaps it's best we discuss this another time, he said, his tone calm but firm. Before I could protest, Mark turned to me. Mom, just trust me. We'll explain everything. That not yet. His words echoed in my mind as I walked away, feeling colder than I ever had before. Not yet. What did that even mean? The cracks in my family's foundation were beginning to show, and I wasn't sure I was ready to see what would fall through them. The hours after that conversation with Mark and the lawyer were like a slow burning fire in my chest. I couldn't stop replaying everything in my head. The coldness in Mark's eyes, the lawyer's too polite demeanor, the cryptic words from Tom's letter. I sat in the living room, the stillness of the house pressing down on me like a weight. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw things, to demand answers. But instead, I sat there, hands clenched into fists, fighting the urge to break apart. The quiet of the house was suffocating. Mark and Lily had both retreated to their rooms, leaving me alone with my thoughts. It felt like the world outside had forgotten us. But the tension inside these walls was suffocating, thickening with each passing minute. I couldn't trust either of them, not anymore. And I knew that if I wanted to understand what was happening, I'd have to take matters into my own hands. The next morning, I decided to confront Mark again. But before I could gather the courage, something unexpected happened. Lily, who had been distant for days, appeared at the kitchen table, her eyes swollen from crying. She looked so fragile, so lost, that my heart ached for her. But I couldn't ignore the coldness I'd felt from her in the past weeks. The distance. Mom, she whispered, her voice shaky, I need to talk to you. It's about Dad's will. Her words hit me like a slap. I hadn't expected her to bring it up. Not like this. Not after everything that had happened. She hesitated, her fingers twisting nervously in front of her. I. I think I know something about what's going on, but I'm scared to tell you. I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she was about to open up. Maybe this was the moment where I'd finally get the truth. Lily, you have to tell me everything, I said, my voice steady despite the rising panic inside me. What's really going on? Why is everything so strange? Why did Mark give me the will like it was no big deal? Why was Tom's letter hidden? What aren't you telling me? She looked down, her face flushed with guilt. I could see the internal struggle in her eyes, the battle between loyalty to her family and the fear of confronting the truth. She took a deep breath before speaking, her voice barely above a whisper. It's not what you think. I didn't want you to know. I didn't want to hurt you, but there's something about the will. Something important that you need to know. Something that could change everything. My heart raced. What is it? She glanced around nervously, then leaned in closer, as if someone might be listening. Dad didn't just leave us money or property. There was more. Much more. What do you mean? What more? Lily hesitated. There was a secret trust. One that didn't come up in the will. One that Mark's been managing without telling you. I felt my breath catch. A secret trust. Mark had been hiding something all along. I had suspected it, but to hear it from Lily's lips was like a slap across my face. I didn't know what to believe anymore. My son, the one I had trusted most, had been keeping secrets from me. And now, my daughter was telling me that it was even worse than I thought. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice cracking with emotion. Why didn't you say anything sooner? I wanted to, but I couldn't. Mark said it was better this way, that it was part of Dad's plan. I felt the anger rising in my chest, bubbling up like a volcano waiting to erupt. What do you mean, part of Dad's plan? What plan? Lily shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. I don't know. But Mark's been handling everything. He's the one who's been making the decisions, not you. Not me. Mark is hiding something from me. I can feel it. He won't tell me what's really going on. What does he know? Why is he doing this? I don't know, Mom, Lily whispered, her voice trembling. But I don't think he's telling you the whole truth. I'm scared. I think. I think he's trying to push you out. The words hit me like a gut punch. Push me out? How could Mark, my own son, do something like that? What had happened to the loving family we once were? I need to know everything, Lily, I said, my voice raw with emotion. I need to see what Mark has been hiding. I need to understand why he's doing this. Lily hesitated for a moment, and then, as if making a difficult decision, she spoke. I think you should look in the study. There's a safe in Tom's desk drawer. It's been there for years. If you want answers, you'll find them there. My pulse quickened. A safe. How could I have missed it? All these years, I had never thought to look. But now, it felt like the key to everything. Tom's death, the will, the trust, everything that had been so confusing might finally come into focus. Thank you, I whispered, a rush of gratitude flooding me. Lily nodded, but there was a sadness in her eyes. I hope you find what you're looking for, Mom. But be careful. Mark is different. He's not the same person you think he is. Her words lingered in the air long after she left the room. As I stood there, staring at the empty space where she had been, I felt a chill run down my spine. Mark had been hiding something, and it was up to me to uncover it. The safe. It was the key, and it was time to finally open it. The air in the house seemed to grow colder as I walked to the study. Each step felt heavier than the last, the weight of what I was about to uncover pressing down on me like 1,000 pounds. I could feel my pulse quicken, my breath shallow. It was as if the walls themselves were closing in, trapping me in a web of uncertainty and dread. Lily's words echoed in my mind. Mark is hiding something. Be careful. What had happened to my son? How had things become so twisted, so complicated? And most of all, what was hidden in that safe? The study was as Tom had left it, but now it felt foreign. His favorite chair sat empty by the window, a place where he used to spend hours reading, writing, thinking. The faint scent of his cologne still lingered, but it no longer brought me comfort. Instead, it reminded me of the life I'd once had, a life that now seemed to be slipping through my fingers. I approached the desk slowly, my hands trembling as I reached for the drawer where Lily had said the safe was hidden. The drawer clicked open, and there it was, a small, discreet metal box, tucked under a pile of old receipts and papers. It wasn't large, but its presence felt like an entire universe of secrets packed into something so simple. I paused, my heart racing. Was I ready for whatever was inside? If I opened this, there would be no turning back. I couldn't unknow the things I might find, but it was too late for hesitation. The truth had to come out, no matter the cost. I grabbed the safe and turned it in my hands, trying to figure out the combination. It wasn't obvious, but I had seen Tom open it a few times over the years. He never mentioned what was inside, and I had never pressed him. But now, in the quiet of this moment, I realized how little I truly knew about the man I'd spent my life with. How many secrets had he kept from me? My fingers moved swiftly, punching in the numbers that I thought Tom might have used. The click of the lock opening felt like a death sentence, final, irrevocable. My breath caught as I lifted the lid. Inside, there were only a few items, but each one seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 questions. A set of papers, a stack of old photos, and a folder marked important. I felt a cold shiver run through me as I pulled out the folder. The label was unmarked, but my fingers trembled as I flipped it open. The first page was a letter written in Tom's unmistakable handwriting. If you are reading this, then you must know that things were not as they seemed. What I am about to tell you may destroy everything you thought you knew about our family, but you must trust Mark. He is the one who can handle this. There are things I could never explain, and now it is his responsibility to deal with them. Please don't fight this. I closed my eyes, trying to process the words, trying to understand the implications. My chest tightened with a mix of fear and confusion. Trust Mark. Why? What was so important that Tom couldn't tell me himself? The next page was a financial statement detailing vast sums of money transferred to various accounts. There were numbers I didn't recognize, names of people I had never heard of. And then, at the bottom, there was something that made my blood run cold. A large sum of money labeled as final payment for services rendered. Services rendered. What kind of service? And who had Tom been paying? I flipped through the papers faster now, the need for answers overtaking my fear. There were more accounts, more transfers, and references to a Project Phoenix, a name I didn't recognize, but which seemed to be linked to everything. This Project Phoenix was something bigger than I could have imagined, something that Tom had been involved in, something hidden away in the shadows. And then my eyes landed on something that made my heart stop. A copy of Tom's life insurance policy, with a rider that listed Mark as the sole beneficiary. The policy was worth millions, but the rider was what caught my attention. In the event of the primary beneficiary's incapacitation or death, the secondary beneficiary will assume control. I couldn't breathe. What does this mean? Mark had always been the secondary beneficiary, but now it seemed like he had known all along that he would eventually take control of everything, even before Tom passed. Was it possible that Tom had been planning this all along? Had he been grooming Mark for this role, whatever it was? I quickly pulled out the last item in the safe, a thick, bound notebook. The cover was worn, and it looked like it had been handled frequently. I flipped it open. Inside were notes, names, and dates. There were mentions of meetings, code names, and what seemed like a covert operation that spanned years. Tom's handwriting was everywhere, his name, his signature, his decisions. But the deeper I dug, the more I realized Tom wasn't just protecting our family. He was involved in something far darker, far more dangerous than I could have imagined. The final page stopped me in my tracks. It was a list of instructions, written in a hurried scrawl, almost as if Tom had written it in a panic. Do not tell her. Do not let her know. Trust Mark. He will understand what to do. I felt a cold wave wash over me. This wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about the house or the will. This was about something bigger. Something Mark was involved in, something Tom had been part of, and now it seemed like I was being pushed out. I quickly shoved the papers back into the folder, closing the safe with shaking hands. My mind was racing, my thoughts a chaotic jumble. I had uncovered enough to know that my family wasn't what I thought it was, but I still didn't know the full story. I didn't know the whole truth. I had one choice. I had to confront Mark. But now, I wasn't sure if I was ready for what would happen next. The tension in the house was unbearable. Every corner of it seemed to echo with the weight of the secrets I had uncovered. I could still feel the tremors of disbelief, the cold truth seeping into my bones. Tom had kept so much from me, and now it seemed like Mark had been hiding the most important pieces all along. My hands were still shaking as I closed the study door behind me, the weight of the papers heavy in my bag. The safe was locked again, but it didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the truth, the whole truth, and I wasn't going to let Mark control the narrative any longer. Not after everything I had learned. I found Mark in the living room, his posture stiff and distant as he stared out the window. He didn't even look at me as I entered, but I could feel him tense, could feel his awareness of my presence like a blade between us. It had been so easy to believe in him, to trust him. He was my son. But now, everything I thought I knew felt like a lie. Mark, I said, my voice steady but edged with the raw emotion I couldn't hide anymore. We need to talk. He didn't respond at first, and I took a few steps closer. Mark, I know you're hiding something from me. I've seen it. I've read it. You need to tell me everything. His jaw tightened, but still, he didn't speak. He was waiting, I could tell. Waiting for me to flinch, waiting for me to back down. But I wouldn't. I found the safe. I continued, my voice rising as the anger I'd been holding back broke through. I found the papers, Mark. The trust. The accounts. The insurance policy. I know about Project Phoenix. I know about the millions, about the plan that Tom set up. I know everything. For a moment, there was silence. Then Mark finally turned to face me. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were cold, harder than I had ever seen them before. Mom, he said, his voice low, almost distant. You don't understand. This wasn't about you. It never was. The words hit me like a slap, and my heart twisted. What do you mean it wasn't about me? I demanded, the confusion turning to fury. I'm your mother. Everything we've built, everything we've had, it was always about us. About our family. Mark sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's complicated, Mom. You wouldn't understand. It's not just about the family. It's about survival. Survival? I repeated, my voice shaking with disbelief. What are you talking about? What was Tom mixed up in? What did he leave me out of? What happened? His gaze flickered for a moment, and I saw something in his eyes, something I had never seen before. It was a flash of guilt, of something darker, but it was gone in an instant. His walls were up again, stronger than ever. It's not that simple, he said, stepping toward me slowly. You need to trust me. You need to trust what Dad wanted. He didn't tell you because he knew you wouldn't accept it. You wouldn't understand why things had to be the way they were. You wouldn't accept the truth. I'm your mother, I screamed, my voice cracking with the rawness of it all. I deserve the truth. I have the right to know what's going on. You can't just shut me out, Mark. But he didn't flinch. His face remained cold, emotionless. You don't get it, Mom. This isn't about you. You're in the way. You've always been in the way. My chest tightened at the words, the sting of betrayal cutting deeper than anything I could have imagined. In the way. How could he say that? How could he be so heartless? You're going to have to let go, he said quietly. It's over. It's already been decided. This was always my responsibility. The words hung in the air like a death sentence, and the realization hit me like a cold wave. Everything Tom's death, the will, the trust, the insurance, was all part of a plan Mark had been a part of from the beginning. He had been preparing for this moment for years, and now that it was here, it was clear. He had already made his choice. I felt the ground beneath me shift, as if everything I had known was being swallowed whole. My son had been playing a role, one I didn't understand, and it was too late to stop him. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come. I didn't know what to say, what to do. My heart was shattering in my chest, the weight of his betrayal crushing me. How could this have happened? How could I have missed it all? Mark's eyes softened for a moment, just a flicker, before the walls slammed back into place. Mom, I'm sorry, he said quietly. But this is bigger than you, than us. You have to understand that. You can't fight this. I don't care what you think, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. You don't get to decide for me. You don't get to decide anything about our family. Not anymore. For a moment, neither of us spoke. We stood there, facing each other, the silence stretching out like a chasm between us. I was shaking now from a mix of rage and sorrow, but something inside me snapped. I couldn't let him control this any longer. I couldn't let him destroy everything I held dear. What are you going to do? He asked, his voice strangely calm, as if he were watching me, waiting for my next move. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I glanced at the door, then back at him. I was done waiting. I was done being the one who didn't know, the one who had to live in the dark. I'm going to find out the truth, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. And then we'll see who's really in control. The silence that followed was heavy, but it wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. The weight of everything I'd learned kept me awake, my mind spinning in endless circles. I could feel the tension between Mark and me like a thick fog in the house. Every time I glanced at him, I saw something I didn't recognize, something cold, calculating. My son was no longer the person I thought I knew. The next morning, I knew I couldn't sit idle. I had to dig deeper, unravel everything, no matter how painful. I couldn't trust Mark, not anymore. I had to find out what Tom had been involved in, what he had kept hidden from me for so many years. I spent the morning in the study again, poring over the papers I'd found in the safe. The mention of Project Phoenix kept gnawing at me. What was it? Why had Tom been so secretive about it? And why had Mark been involved? I pulled out the notebook again, flipping through its pages, searching for any clue, any lead that might explain this mysterious project. The notes were scattered, disjointed, but one name kept appearing: Evelyn Harper. At first glance, she seemed like another anonymous name, but something about it felt off. There was an undercurrent of urgency every time Tom had written her name, as if she were someone important. I Googled her name, heart racing as I typed the words into the search bar. My eyes skimmed over the results, and then I saw it. Evelyn Harper, co-founder of Phoenix Industries. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Phoenix Industries. Could it be connected to Project Phoenix? The pieces were starting to align, but I still didn't know how they fit together. The website was sleek, professional, and nearly devoid of any personal details. Evelyn Harper was listed as a co-founder, but there was no picture, no biography. The site offered nothing but the name of the company and a brief mention of its work in innovative technological solutions. It didn't explain anything, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was just scratching the surface. I spent the next few hours digging deeper into Phoenix Industries and Evelyn Harper. I scoured every corner of the internet, every obscure forum, looking for anything that might give me answers. But it wasn't until I stumbled upon an obscure thread on a dark web forum that I began to uncover the truth. The thread was old, several years in fact, but it was about a major scandal involving Phoenix Industries and its founders. The company, it seemed, had been involved in a series of highly unethical experiments, dealing with biotechnology and artificial intelligence. The thread suggested that Phoenix was at the center of a covert government operation. There were rumors of people disappearing, of operations being covered up, of technology that was dangerous beyond belief. I sat back, the weight of it all settling on my chest. Was this what Tom had been involved in? Had he known the truth about Phoenix Industries? Had he been part of something so dark, so dangerous, that he had to keep it hidden from me? It was then that I remembered the final payment for services rendered in the papers I had found in the safe. Tom had been paying someone, possibly Evelyn Harper. Was she involved in these experiments? Was she the one pulling the strings behind the scenes? I couldn't sit there any longer. I had to find out more about Evelyn Harper, about Phoenix Industries, and about what role Tom had played in it all. And the only way I could do that was to confront her. I quickly gathered my things, determined to track down Evelyn. I had no idea where to start, but I had to try. If Tom had been involved with her, if she was the key to everything, I needed to face her. I needed to hear her side of the story. I wasn't going to let Mark dictate what I knew anymore. I didn't tell Mark what I was doing. I couldn't trust him. Not after everything that had happened. I had to do this on my own. It took hours of research and phone calls to finally find an address for Evelyn Harper. It wasn't much, but it was enough. A small office building in a run-down part of the city. I took a deep breath before heading out the door, my hands trembling slightly as I gripped the steering wheel. The drive felt long, my mind racing with the possibilities. What would Evelyn say? What would she reveal? And how would Mark react when he found out I'd gone behind his back? By the time I arrived at the address, it was already late afternoon. The building was nothing like I had expected. It was a nondescript, almost abandoned-looking structure with no signage, just a plain door and a series of windows that were mostly blacked out. I walked up to the door, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know what I was expecting, but it certainly wasn't the eerie silence that greeted me. I knocked, then waited, my breath shallow. A moment passed, then another. Just as I was about to turn away, the door creaked open slightly. A woman stood there, her face partially obscured by the shadows. Her hair was dark and wild, her eyes sharp and calculating. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice cold and clipped. "I'm looking for Evelyn Harper," I said, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to stay calm. "I'm Evelyn," she replied, her gaze narrowing. "And you are?" I'm looking for answers," I said, feeling the weight of everything I had uncovered pressing down on me. "I need to know what happened with Tom, what he was involved in, what Project Phoenix really is." For a moment, she didn't say anything. Her eyes seemed to study me, reading me, weighing me. Then she stepped back and motioned for me to come in. "Come inside," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "We have a lot to talk about." And just like that, I crossed the threshold into a world one couldn't have imagined, a world of secrets and lies that would change everything I thought I knew. The door creaked as it closed behind me, shutting out the sounds of the city and plunging me into a silence that felt suffocating. Evelyn's office was dimly lit, the shadows in the corners of the room almost suffocating, like they were watching me. There was a coldness to the space, an eerie feeling of being in the presence of something wrong. I couldn't explain it, but every fiber of my being screamed that I was in the heart of something dangerous. Evelyn led me further into the room, her every movement deliberate, calculated. Her eyes never left me as I followed her to a worn leather chair in front of a cluttered desk. She motioned for me to sit, but I hesitated. My heart was racing, the adrenaline coursing through my veins. But I had come this far. I couldn't back out now. "You came looking for answers," Evelyn said, her voice a low, almost soothing murmur, as if she were accustomed to people seeking her out for the truth. "You won't like what you find." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "I don't care," I replied, my voice sharper than I intended. "I need to know what happened to Tom, what he was involved in. What is Project Phoenix?" Evelyn studied me for a long moment, her gaze piercing, almost as though she were weighing whether I was worthy of the truth. Finally, she sighed and took a seat behind her desk, pulling open a drawer and retrieving a folder. It was thick, with the same heavy, official feel as the documents I had found in Tom's safe. She opened it slowly, as if giving the moment a dramatic pause. Your husband, she began, her voice colder now, more clinical, wasn't just a man of business. He was a man of ambition, a far reaching vision. What he got involved with, it was dangerous, and it was always meant to be kept hidden. I leaned forward, my hands gripping the arms of the chair, my pulse quickening with each word she spoke. Project Phoenix, Evelyn continued, was never just about technology or innovation. It was about control, about creating control. What your husband was part of wasn't just some business venture. It was part of something much darker, a plan to manipulate the future of humanity. And yes, Mark has been a key player in it all. Her words set a chill down my spine, but I couldn't stop myself from pressing her further. What do you mean, create control? I demanded. How? What was Tom really doing? And why did he leave it all to Mark? Evelyn leaned back in her chair, her fingers tapping rhythmically on the desk. Her eyes flickered with something almost like regret, but it was quickly masked by her calculating demeanor. Phoenix Industries isn't just a company. It's a front for a much larger operation. The money Tom was paying me, the secret accounts, those weren't just for research and development. Those funds were used to conduct experiments tests and ultimately to develop a technology that could control the human mind. Her voice dropped lower, like she was confessing a sin. Tom and I were working on artificial intelligence, but it wasn't for machines. It was for people. I felt the ground beneath me shift. For people? I repeated, trying to wrap my mind around what she was saying. You're telling me Tom was involved in mind control? Evelyn's lips curled into a tight smile, but there was no warmth in it. Not mind control in the way you think. It's more subtle, more insidious. The technology we developed could implant suggestions, alter behavior, shape desires, and even erase memories. We were working on perfecting it until Tom pulled away. I don't think he ever realized just how dangerous it had become. I was silent for a long moment, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Everything I thought I knew about Tom, about my husband, was now shattered. He had been part of something far more sinister than I could have ever imagined. And Mark, my son, had been right in the middle of it. You're saying that Mark is involved in all of this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. That he knew about Project Phoenix? That he's been part of this experiment? Evelyn nodded slowly. Mark is your husband's successor, whether you like it or not. The technology, the control, it was meant for him. Your son is being groomed for something bigger, something that's been in the works for years. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. Mark, my son. How had I been so blind? He had always been so distant, so focused. But I had never suspected this. Never imagined that the quiet, reserved boy I had raised could be part of something so dark. But why me? I asked, my voice shaky with the weight of it all. Why did Tom hide all of this from me? Why did he leave everything to Mark? Evelyn's gaze softened for a brief moment, almost like she was pitying me. Because, my dear, you were never meant to be part of this. Tom knew that if you found out the truth, you would never accept it. You would fight it. You would try to stop him, and ultimately stop Mark. I sat back in the chair, my heart pounding. This was bigger than anything I'd ever imagined. It wasn't just about a will or money. It was about control, about using my family to further some kind of twisted, dangerous experiment. And Mark had been a willing participant, even if he hadn't been the one pulling the strings. So what now? I whispered. What happens to me? What happens to us? Evelyn leaned forward, her voice taking on a tone of finality. Now, it's up to you. You can either walk away, let Mark take control and accept the future that's been laid out for you. Or you can try to fight. But I'll warn you, fighting won't be easy. Your son, as much as you may want to believe otherwise, is already too far gone. He is part of something that's much bigger than you or me. And if you try to stop him, well, let's just say you won't be the first mother to lose her son to Project Phoenix. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I could feel the cold sweat forming on my skin. This was real. The world one thought I knew was nothing more than a lie. And the person I thought I could trust most My own son was now a part of something that could destroy everything. But Evelyn's words, while terrifying, also lit a spark in me. I couldn't give up. I couldn't let Mark or anyone control our lives. I had come too far to stop now. I won't stop, I said, my voice trembling but filled with determination. I will find a way to stop this. I won't let Mark destroy our family. I won't let Project Phoenix succeed. Evelyn smiled, but this time there was something almost approving in her gaze. We'll see, she said softly. We'll see. And just like that, the door to the truth had opened. But I knew I was walking deeper into a nightmare. The air felt thicker now, as if the walls themselves were closing in on me. Evelyn's words echoed in my head. You won't be the first mother to lose her son. I had never heard anything so chilling in my life. I could feel the weight of her warning pressing down on me, threatening to crush my will. She was right about one thing. Mark was already a part of something too vast, too dangerous to easily escape. But I couldn't walk away. Not now. Not when everything was on the line. I stood up from the chair, my hands clenched into fists at my sides, heart racing. The room around me seemed to blur as I processed everything Evelyn had told me. Project Phoenix was not just an experiment. It was a manipulation of the very essence of what it meant to be human. And my son was at the center of it. But no one was going to take my family from me. No one was going to control my son. Evelyn watched me with an inscrutable expression, as if she were waiting for me to collapse under the weight of what I had learned. But I didn't. I couldn't. Not after everything I had seen, not after what had been done to my husband and to me. I won't let you manipulate me, I said, my voice low but steady, filled with the rage that had been bubbling beneath the surface for so long. And I won't let you manipulate Mark. Evelyn raised an eyebrow, her lips curling into a small, almost pitying smile. Manipulate? No, my dear. I'm simply giving you the truth. What you choose to do with it is up to you. But make no mistake, you're already in this deeper than you realize. Her words hit me like a slap. I was in too deep. She was right about that. But that didn't matter anymore. I had made up my mind. I turned toward the door. Evelyn didn't stop me, but she called out softly, just before I reached for the handle. You're going to need help, you know. You can't do this alone. Mark won't back down. And the people who are behind Project Phoenix will stop at nothing to ensure it succeeds. I stopped, my hand hovering over the doorknob, and turned back to face her. Who are these people? I demanded. Who else is involved in this? Evelyn's gaze shifted, just for a second, as if she was debating whether to reveal more. But she didn't. Instead, she leaned back in her chair, folding her arms. That's something you'll have to discover for yourself. But be warned, dig too deep, and you may find things that are better left buried. I stared at her, fighting the urge to scream. But there was no point. Evelyn wasn't going to tell me anything more. She had already given me enough, far more than I had ever expected. But it still wasn't enough. I needed to know everything. I needed to understand why Mark had gotten involved, why Tom had hidden all of this from me, and what kind of people I was dealing with. I couldn't back down. Not now. I'll find out, I said, my voice laced with determination. And when I do, I'll make sure you're all held accountable. Evelyn's smile returned, but it was colder this time. Good luck with that, she said softly, her eyes flickering with something like amusement. You'll need it. With that, I stepped out of the office and into the cold, the door clicking shut behind me. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The truth was like a shackle around my wrist now, pulling me forward. There was no turning back. As I drove away from Evelyn's office, my mind raced. I needed to find Mark. There was no time to waste. I couldn't let him slip further into whatever dark world he was being pulled into. But how would I reach him? How could I get through to him now that I knew the truth? Would he even listen to me? I spent the next few hours doing what I had avoided for days, gathering my thoughts, making a plan. My hands shook as I dialed his number, but I couldn't let the fear control me anymore. I had to take charge. I had to make him see reason. Mark, I said when he picked up, my voice steady, despite the storm in my chest. I need to see you. Right now. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Mom, Mark's voice was soft, hesitant. but with an edge I recognized. You don't want to do this. You don't understand what you're up against. I don't care what you think. I shot back, the anger rising in my voice. You've been lying to me. You've been part of something I never even imagined. I know about Project Phoenix. I know what you've been doing. There was a sharp intake of breath, then silence. I could feel the tension building on the other end of the line. I'm coming to see you, I added, my voice unyielding. We need to talk, Mark, and I'm not leaving until I understand everything. No more lies. After a long pause, he finally spoke, his voice cold, distant. I'll be waiting. I ended the call before he could say anything more, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know what to expect when I saw him, what I would say or how he would react. But I had made my decision. I wasn't going to let my son disappear into this twisted world. I wasn't going to lose him, no matter what it took. I drove to his apartment, my hands gripping the steering wheel, thoughts racing. Mark had always been the quiet one, the one who stayed in the background, never asking for attention. But now, everything had changed. He had changed. When I arrived, I didn't waste any time. I walked up to his door and knocked hard. It took a moment, but then I heard footsteps on the other side, followed by the sound of the lock clicking open. Mark stood in the doorway, his face unreadable. His eyes flickered over me, but he didn't say anything at first. I'm not here to argue, I said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. I'm here for the truth. You owe me that much. Mark's jaw tightened, and he stepped back, allowing me inside. But as I entered, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was it, the point of no return. Whatever happened next would change everything. I had no idea what kind of man my son had become, but I was going to find out. Mark's apartment smelled faintly of coffee and antiseptic cleanliness, sterile, almost clinical. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a waiting room for decisions no one wanted to make. The curtains were half drawn, letting thin gray light stretch across the floor like prison bars. I stood in the middle of the room, my heart hammering, trying to recognize the boy I had once tucked into bed after nightmares. He closed the door quietly behind me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Mark walked past me toward the kitchen counter, pouring himself a glass of water with slow, controlled movements. He didn't offer me anything. That small detail hurt more than I expected. You shouldn't have gone to Evelyn, he finally said, his voice calm but heavy with exhaustion. You shouldn't have lied to me, I replied. He froze for just a second before taking a sip of water. Then he set the glass down with surgical precision. You don't understand the danger you're in now, he said. No, I answered quietly. I understand exactly how dangerous this is. What I don't understand is how my son became part of it. That landed. I saw it in the tightening of his shoulders. He turned toward me slowly, his expression cracking for the first time. Beneath the composure, I saw fear. Not for himself, but for me. That didn't give me a choice, he said. I blinked. That's not true. Yes, he insisted, his voice sharper now. He trained me for years, introduced me to people, showed me the technology. He said it would protect the family, that Phoenix would guarantee security, influence, control over threats we didn't even know existed. And you believed him? I still do. The words hit like broken glass. I stepped closer. They manipulate minds, Mark. Memories. Personalities. That's not protection, that's ownership. You think the world runs on honesty? He shot back, frustration spilling out. Mom, governments already use this tech. Corporations too. Phoenix is just ahead of everyone else. Then why did your father try to pull away? I asked quietly. That stopped him. Silence spread between us again, thick and suffocating. He didn't, Mark said eventually, but his voice lacked conviction. He did, I said, stepping closer, lowering my voice. I found his notes. His panic at the end. He was scared, Mark. Not of the world. Of Phoenix. Mark's breathing slowed. His eyes drifted toward the floor. You don't know what you're talking about, he murmured. Then tell me, I whispered. Tell me why his final instructions said not to tell me. Tell me why he sounded like a man trying to contain a disaster. Mark rubbed his face, pacing toward the window. The city lights flickered below like distant stars. You're forcing this, he said. No, I replied. I'm saving you from it. His shoulders slumped slightly. You think I haven't questioned it? He said quietly. You think I sleep at night knowing what this technology can do? Knowing what it already has done? My chest tightened. Then walk away, I said. I can't. Why not? He turned toward me, eyes filled with something raw and fragile. Because I'm not just managing Phoenix anymore, he said. I'm part of it. A chill crawled up my spine. What does that mean? He hesitated. Then he pulled back his sleeve slightly, revealing a faint surgical scar along his forearm. They tested early integration models, he admitted. Behavioral reinforcement. Cognitive optimization. I volunteered. Tad told me it would prove loyalty to the board. My stomach dropped. You let them experiment on you? I wanted to prove I could lead, he said hoarsely. I felt tears sting my eyes. Oh, Mark. They monitor me, he continued. My stress levels, decision-making patterns, even emotional fluctuations. If I walk away, they won't just lose leadership. They'll lose a prototype. The word made my skin crawl. And what happens to prototypes when they malfunction? I asked. He didn't answer. That silence told me everything. I stepped closer until we stood only inches apart. You're not a prototype, I said softly. You're my son. His composure shattered. His eyes glistened, jaw trembling. You don't know how deep this goes, he whispered. They have contingency plans for everything. Legal control, financial control, psychological control. If I resist, they'll declare me unstable. Strip everything. And he swallowed hard. They'll come after you. I exhaled slowly, steadying myself. Then we don't let them control the narrative, I said. He shook his head. You can't win against them. Maybe not alone, I replied. He studied me carefully, like he was seeing me for the first time. Mom, what are you planning? I hesitated. The truth sat heavy in my chest. The will reading, I said. His brow furrowed. What about it? You said it was just a formality. It is, he replied cautiously. Good, I said. Then they won't expect anything. Mark's expression shifted, suspicion rising. Mom, they'll all be there, won't they? I pressed. Board representatives, legal advisors, Phoenix observers disguised as estate consultants. He didn't deny it. Tom structured it that way intentionally, he admitted quietly. Perfect, I said. His eyes widened. Perfect for what? I reached into my purse and pulled out Tom's notebook, the one with the hurried final pages, the one Mark had clearly never seen. I found his contingency plan, I said. Mark stared at it like it might explode. He designed Phoenix alongside them. I continued. But he also designed a failsafe. Legal triggers embedded in the estate structure. He couldn't destroy the project outright, but he could expose it if certain conditions were met. Mark's voice dropped to a whisper. What conditions? I held his gaze. One question, I said. He blinked. What question? I swallowed, feeling the gravity of everything settle into place. At the will reading, in front of everyone, I ask who holds medical and cognitive guardianship over you under Phoenix's internal charter. His face drained of color. If they answer truthfully, I continued, they legally admit human experimentation oversight. That violates international compliance law. The entire project becomes investigable. Mark stared at me, stunned. You'd burn Phoenix to the ground, he whispered. I'd free my son, I replied. The room fell silent except for the faint hum of city traffic outside. You could lose everything, he said. I already lost your father, I answered softly. I'm not losing you too. He closed his eyes, wrestling with something deep inside himself. Seconds stretched into eternity. Finally, he spoke. They'll come after you. Let them, I said. They could destroy your reputation, your finances, your sanity in court. I stepped closer, placing my hand gently on his cheek like I used to when he was a child. Sweetheart, I whispered, They already tried to convince people I was losing my mind. Remember, his breath caught, and I'm still standing. Tears slid down his face before he could stop them. I'm scared, he admitted. I know, I said. So am I. He looked at the notebook again, then back at me. If you do this, there's no going back. I know. Another long silence stretched between us. Then slowly, trembling, he nodded. Okay, he whispered. Relief and terror crashed through me at the same time. The will reading was in 2 days. 2 days until I would stand in a room filled with people who believed they controlled everything. 2 days until I asked one question they never prepared for. As I left Mark's apartment that night, the city air felt sharper, colder, alive with invisible threats. But beneath the fear, something else stirred inside me. Resolve. Tom had built a secret world. Mark had been trapped inside it. And now, I was walking straight into its center. But this time, I wasn't walking in blind. And as I drove home under the flickering streetlights, one thought echoed steadily in my mind. Some families inherit money. Mine inherited secrets. And in 48 hours, those secrets were going to explode into the open.